in my own homeland. This place is so nice, wanna do everything twice. Yes, I feel as if I'm in a paradise. No matter the season, you've got every reason. This place is another little heaven.
Greetings, kings and queens. Welcome to another Real Stuff podcast. Today is Monday, and when it's Monday, we have the really current. And today we have a special guest. Yes, a very special guest. So in case you're going to get your coffee or your tea, whatever beverage that you consume this time of the morning, go ahead and go grab it. I'll be back with my podcasting team in a few minutes.
You can jump, dance, or sing and shout in my own homeland. Give yourself a treat, a few days or a week, and you will see just what I mean. Just take my advice, everyone is nice. You feel like royalty, my friend.
Yes, indeed. I hope you're feeling royal this morning. So, let me introduce you to my podcasting team this morning. I got Flavius is right here. I got Errol and I got Courtney. And we have, of course, our special guest. So, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my moderator this morning, the Thinking Bean. Go ahead, Mr. Bean.
And viewers, now, she is a graduate of the University of the West Indies, UWI, and the University of Cambridge, and is Professor Emerita of Social History at the UWI. She is Director of Center for Reparation Research at the UWI, a published author of 7 books. Now, 7 books doesn't mean that you will only see her name in 7 books, countless number of books. She's a radio host. Yes, bro? Okay. A radio host, and I may just slip that in. She has every Saturday morning, nationwide radio, a 2 hours Talking History Jamaica program. Please, young people especially, and others who need to be educated on history, tune into that program, Talking History. I listen to that program every Saturday morning, except a few mornings if I sleep late, and I catch it back on the repeat. She will tell you. Okay, so she's a radio talk show host and a scholar activist, especially in the areas of women's rights, human rights, and reparatory justice, close to her heart. She is the immediate past director of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the UWI. As an expert, as a UN expert, she has played a role in helping to implement the UN International Year for People of African Descent and overseeing the drafting of the program of activities for the UN International Decade for People of African Descent, while she was chair of the working group of experts on people of African descent. Since 2016, she has been member of the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, CERD. She is an honorary fellow of Jesus College, Cambridge. As I said, she's host of Talking History Jamaica, and her friends and colleagues call her Verene. In our family, we call her Prof. There are hundreds of profs. But when we say prof, we know it is this prof we are referring to. And I must slip in this. She's largely responsible for my daughter's achievements. And I will always say this, Dr. Delabine. She's the one who has brought her along in many ways to achievement, academic excellence. It is my special privilege and honor to present to you, viewers, listeners, and to welcome to the Real Stuff podcast, Professor Verene Shepherd, CD.
Recording in progress.
Welcome, Prof.
Crew members.
Yes.
Members of your team on the Real podcast. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I think Franco is about to play something for you.
What is this?
Road to world peace and justice.
On behalf of our enslaved ancestors, known and unknown, we shout
Black Lives Matter. Former enslavers and colonizers must right the wrongs of the past, pay their debts and settle their accounts.
We Africans and people of African descent claim for reparation and repatriation.
Even CARICOM and the government of Jamaica have said,
Reparation time come.
Get up, get up.
Yes,
That's
that is
right.
played on her program every Saturday. And I'm very proud to say that she asked me to produce that. So Wayne Almond, Heather Brown Sugar, Baga K, some home tea, and yours truly did that for her. Thank you, Prof, for the privilege.
And I thank you really for the great work that you do. I have played several things that you have produced on my show. So especially now in Heritage Month in Jamaica and Black History Month in the UK. Yes. So we thank you.
Thank you. Again, we cannot overstate the honor we have to have you, a busy lady, professor, and you take time out. So without any further ado, as Franco would say, if you were really being the moderator this morning, incidentally, I cannot overlook Flavius. He's not going to speak much. He's always doing something in the background, but he boasts on me that you have worked with him with the Maroon conferences and so on, and that is his very big claim to fame with respect to you.
Yeah.
And you acknowledge that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, let's start with your motivation, Prof.
Morning, Prof.
Morning.
Okay, here he is, right.
Good to see you.
Yes. Thank you, Flavius,
You
for the
too.
greeting.
Yes.
What has been your motivation for academic pursuits and excellence?
You know, Mr. Bean, it's nothing earth-shattering, you know. Let me say it's poverty. It was poverty.
Really?
I grew up in a small district, a socially challenged district in terms of physical infrastructure. In St. Mary me come from, right?
Yes.
And
Me too. Mm-hmm.
yes. So the district on the land title that my father, always put up very carefully, said Hopewell. But because there was no electricity, running water, we had to go to the spring for water. We relied a lot on the fruits and food around the place. We couldn't afford various things. People called it Africa because that was a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the poor education and the Eurocentric education that many of us grew up on. That was people's stereotypical view of the continent of Africa, the motherland. So our district was called Africa. I asked my mother, who is my other influence for wanting to be excellent. I asked my mother, why is it called Africa? And Daddy says, it is Hopewell. And she said, because of the stereotype of Africa. And so, I have many brothers and sisters. There were 10 of us. And so we had to use education to get us out of that kind of poverty. Although, Mr. Bean, after I moved to Kingston and I saw urban poverty, I was saying to myself, maybe we weren't so poor after all,
Didn't know. I did not say
because
that.
we were
Yes.
never hungry. We had land. My father was, one of these small banana peasants. And he did everything, he and my mother. My mother was a seamstress. And he was a part-time tailor as well. So we were always well put together. We never knew anything else apart from style and fashion. Mm-hmm. And because they were very creative,
Yes.
They made sure we went to school and they made sure we were able to take the common entrance. Most of us passed it, even though it's half scholarship we get, but we still persevered. Went to St. Mary High School and then, from there progressed because I was determined to improve myself, to be educated as far as I could go, and then to turn back, get a job that was fairly well paying and support the family. So self-improvement, search of self, search for relevance, and then studying history because of that first history teacher in my life, my mother, who explained about the continent of Africa and people's stereotypical view. So I became a trained teacher and then a lecturer at the University of the West Indies because I was determined to share my own knowledge with my people so that they could also be educated. And by the way, Mr. Bean, you have to understand.
Yes.
The more you rise in the academic field, when you're at the University of the West Indies or any university, the mantra is publish or perish.
Publish or perish.
Academic, yes, publish or perish. So as an academic, you have to write. You have to be a good teacher. The students have to say you're all right. You have to contribute to the university itself and to your department and to the country and internationally if you can. All those things get you promotion. And with every promotion comes a salary increase. So it was all kinds of influences that made me want to be excellent in my field.
Thank you, Prof. I know you could spend the hour talking about that aspect because the fact that you have emerged as a fashionista, the kind of heavy, I don't know what is the proper name for the headwears you carry.
This is a gele from Nigeria.
All right. Look, I don't know there's anybody who have more headwear than Prof. And I've never seen her in one of them 2 times. So I tell you, that is a thing. And the fact that Africa, the name Africa was part of your beginning, this whole idea of your movement for excellence is an education and an inspiration for young people. And after this program will be up, and we will make sure we promote this so that people don't think Prof just happened this morning.
No.
Prof, in fact, Prof, I thought you were born rich.
No.
Believe me, the first I'm knowing that you never born rich.
I'm from such lowly beginnings, but with parents I had, and with the older siblings always making sure that as soon as they get a job, they bring up the other ones.
Yes.
This is how a family needs to organize itself so that
generational wealth
is brought up.
Yes.
So it's not wealth.
Yes.
But our parents made sure that we didn't stay down. It's not about where you're born, it's what you do with your opportunities.
That is so true.
And I always say to people, don't watch where I'm coming from, just watch where I'm going.
Excellent. And my wife told me that she was happily at Shortwood Teachers College with you and that you were bright, that you were very bright.
Well, I don't know, but
she told me that you did bright.
I don't want to praise myself, but yes, I met Gloria there and we have been friends ever since.
And then our daughter.
And of course, Dr. Bean, I have to give her title. But she didn't need much supervision, Mr. Bean. She's
humble. You saw she humble?
She's so bright.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on, Prof.
I really love her dearly.
Let me not cause you to talk only on this topic this morning. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, education is a key thing in your life that causes you to excel and to improve. Let's move straight into the next question. You are passionate about the compulsory teaching of Caribbean and African linked history beyond grade 9 in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you say this every morning almost, and you quote Mandela, the favorite quote which you may bring in to support this. How has this gap in the knowledge of our young people in the Caribbean impacted their understanding of self broadly speaking?
Yes, and you talk about Tata Madiba, and he said, you can't be proud of yourself if you don't know your history.
Yes.
And I want everyone, including the young people, to be proud of their history. Our history, the way some of us were brought up, was not we didn't get the kind of history education which anchored us to an empowering past, It was Eurocentric. So I'm saying, if the children don't learn Caribbean and African history if they don't do history beyond grade 9, they won't be exposed to the CSEC syllabus, history syllabus. They won't do CAPE, the Advanced Proficiency Examination history program. They won't be exposed to that. They will know some Jamaican history. They will know about the indigenous peoples, and they may know something about the African people who were forcefully captured and shipped over here, but they won't go beyond that. And the history that is important is beyond grade 9. It is not right to trap our children into only a very skewed and marginal history. Grade 9 is not enough. We have to lobby for compulsory education, history education beyond that, because, we need to know our connection. We need to have a knowledge of a past that will make us proud of our beginnings and not ashamed. If you only teach children about slavery, then they're not going to understand, that is not the sum total of our history. So I think we need to, I hope many people join that lobby to say our children deserve an education that will make them proud of themselves.
And you have not just said this on your program or in many interviews that you have done. You have actually written text, Prof. This program is open to advertising guest works. What are some of the works that you have done, written, published to help this process?
Well, my first book was called Transients to Settlers, The History of Indians in Jamaica, because I grew up at a time when it was only African people who were marginalized, but Indian people were marginalized because their beginning was as contract or indentured laborers in Jamaica, and the Chinese too. They were all indentured or bonded labor in the aftermath of African enslavement, after emancipation. And I wanted to bring some enlightenment to that, to say, in a country like ours, where, according to Elsa Gavaya, shame about the past traps us, we need to understand the beginnings of everyone and try to live together in peace and to reconcile our differences. So I wrote that book. Yes. And also, Professor Beckles and I have written quite a few textbooks for the schools.
Yes.
I want to advertise the one called Liberties Lost, because that gives the children an understanding of our history, Caribbean history, not just Jamaica.
Yes.
From 1492 right up to emancipation. The second volume, the companion volume, is called Freedoms Won, W-O-N. Yes. And that is to show them the way in which our ancestors were abolitionists and they fought for freedom. It wasn't only about Mrs. Queen set us free, and it wasn't about Wilberforce alone or Sharp and so on, unless it's our Sharp they're talking about. So, and then for the more advanced students, we have done Caribbean Freedom, and we have done Caribbean Slave Society and Economy, just so that they'll get an understanding of the broad spread of our history.
Okay, thank you.
Prof. For the sports, those who love sports, I have to also mention that I was commissioned to write a history of the Gibson Relays.
That's for Flavius, but we're not going to let him take over this, because he will go into this at depth. He's an avid sports person. Your latest book, I know, is to one of the stalwarts of history. Just tell us briefly about that.
Yes, very quickly. And in fact, after this, we're going to be actually having a program which focuses on this new book. It's a biography of Lucille Mathurin Mayer. Now, Lucille Mathurin Mayer was a very important woman, a Jamaican. She was warden of Mary Seacole Hall. She lived in St. Lucia for a while because she was married to a St. Lucian. After her husband, Guy Mathurin, died, she came to Jamaica, to the University of the West Indies, spent many years there as warden, but she also enrolled in the history department, and she did the first ever full-length study of women in Jamaica.
Interesting.
So we did her biography so that we could bring enlightenment. And I thank my research assistant on this, Stephanie Sewell.
Yes.
Because and by the way, Delia Bean had, when I was the university director of the Institute for Gender and Development, she helped me to develop a calendar which had a page, 1 month, which was focused on Lucille Mathurin Mayer.
Don't I remember?
Yes, and then when we were actually, Professor Beckles and I were asked by the UE Press, at Mayer's insistence before she passed, to translate the thesis into a book. It was Delia who was the research assistant on that project. So she's been really with me for a very long time. So the biography is on the woman herself, not just the work she did,
Yes.
but on her life and legacy.
Yes,
The
I had
biography of Lucille
yes, I had the
Manchester.
privilege
Yes.
of being at the launch online, and I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
Again, every subject I ask you about, you could elaborate for 1 hour. So let's move on.
I will try to be short in my answer.
No, I'm not blaming you because I know there's so much. So that's why we are even at bringing in the other hosts to interact with you, to just get as much of you on because we don't know when we'll ever get you back again. All right. Couple of weeks ago, Courtney, who's off camera this morning, one of the hosts of the program, we had a little quote unquote a dispute. Why people, you revisionist historians, have called what was traditionally the Morant Bay War, the Morant Bay Rebellion and the Sam Sharp Rebellion. You call them war. Briefly tell us why you and others have called these movements war.
Mr. Bean, Mr. So, is the ancestors or ancestors who fought, they are the ones who left documents to tell us that.
Okay.
And since we're in October and we're talking about Vogel, and by the way, yesterday, October 24, was the 156th anniversary of the hanging, the brutal murder of Paul Vogel, or who's now our national hero.
Yes.
And I thank Clinton Hutton for this, because Clinton Hutton has written a book on the Morant Bay War called Color for Color, Skin for Skin.
Very special book.
And he has a quotation in there from Paul Vogel, who said that the day before the outbreak of the war, the book are then preparing for war, and so should we. So
interesting.
So he used the term war, and he understood that he was going into battle with his army. And Sharp too. And I want to say this very quickly. That war, I call it the 1831-32 Emancipation War.
Yes.
Because I kind of have a problem with, we're always calling the wars after the men. Taki's Rebellion or War, Sam Sharp War, Busab Rebellion. Many people fought in these wars. And so I want to say the 1760 Centenary War, led by Chief Techi, which is how it's pronounced, and the 1831-32 Emancipation War, led by Sam Sharp.
Yes.
But when you study that war, you realize how they were gathering weapons. Remember, Chief Techi also, his army, they raided Fort Haldane for weapons, right? If it's a rebellion is like a spontaneous, unplanned protest. These were not rebellions. And rebellion is used by the colonizers because they want to give the impression that our ancestors were not capable. They had no intellectual capacity to plan and execute any protest. So we need to stop it and say war. And the war led by Sam Sharp, by the way, was being planned from 1824. Yes. This was not something that started in their heads Boxing Day of 1831. Yes. So they call it war. They were wars. Remember, many of our ancestors, male or female, were trained warriors in Africa already.
So true.
It was no surprise that when they came over here, they continued the fight for freedom.
Yes, and I must put a plug in here. Prof. Shepard researched the names and all that sentencing of the persons who were tried and sentenced in the British slave court, whatever we call it. I remember the name now. And we recorded, we have a tribute that she and myself and Miguel Lorne, we went to Fab 5 studio and we recorded tribute, calling many of the names. And I'm very proud to have worked with her. That video is on my YouTube channel, and every now and again, Prof plays it. My only regret is that I didn't do the Morant Bay, but we keep reading the names, and one day we'll do that.
Yes,
thank you.
No, and yes, as far as I said, we need to recognize we need to study what our ancestors said. And
very good. Okay, quickly now, before we move on to the other question, Courtney, did you get any comment, any relevant questions from our YouTube viewers, or we can move on?
No, I didn't get to see any questions.
That you think is relevant. Thank you very much. We move on.
There is one there. There is one there.
Yes.
And the person want to know what led to the establishment of the UN International for the People of African Descent,
Okay,
What
tell the person
role?
that they are so right. This is the next question
All right.
we're going to go to. So the
So
international,
interesting.
very,
Yes.
yes, very connected. International Decade for People of African Descent. That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, 2015 to 2024. So we are still in it.
So that's, yes, the decade.
Yes, the decade.
Yes. Well, first of all, there was the International Year for People of African Descent.
Yes.
And then it was decided that a year was not enough to focus on the issues that affect people of African descent and African people.
Yes.
And following the indigenous people, who also had a decade and a second decade, they decided to lobby and put together plans, get support from the member states for an international decade for people of African descent, as you said, 2015 to 2024. So we're sort of beyond the mid-decade, in fact.
Yes.
And it also came out of the 2001 Anti-Racism Conference, which was held in Durban, South Africa. Out of that conference came a document called the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And the program of activities for the International Decade actually patterned some of the recommendations from the outcome document there, which was called the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. And in that, it was recommended that more emphasis should be placed on people of African descent. And so when I was chair of the working group of experts on people of African descent, we started to work on it. You know, I kind of inherited the International Year, but I was there when we were drafting. And then I left there to become a member of CERD, and other people took it over, you know, the Intergovernmental Working Group, the African group. And then I was invited to the launch, in fact, in December 2014. So it came out of the realization that even, you know, centuries after, you know, the end of enslavement and so on, we are still trapped in a situation of marginalization, racial profiling, racial discrimination, and poor education, poor health. So if you look at the recommendations, the action that should be taken, those actions speak to improvement for one of the most marginalized groups in the history of our world.
Okay, one of the questions akin to that, thank you, Prof, that Flavors would ask you, how have the Caribbean governments, heads of governments, collectively or as a group, responded to this?
Not as vigorously as we would have wanted. One of the recommendations in the program of our activities is that every member state of the UN should launch officially the decade. Very few Caribbean countries launch the decade. We're still lobbying to get them to do that. I don't even think Jamaica has had any, you know, big launch. Maybe there has been a soft launch here and there.
Yes.
But as a country, we haven't paid much attention. What I noticed, Flavius and others, is that in the Caribbean, in the CARICOM region, we are delusional. We say that there is no racism, and therefore, why do we need a decade for people of African descent? All Black people are okay. We're the majority. Nobody now bother us, and we are good. And you know, why are we bothering with that? So there's that attitude that, in fact, when I said it to someone some years ago, they said that's for Trinidad and Guyana and Suriname because they have, you know, well, you can't even believe the statistics sometimes. Sometimes we hear that Black people are in the majority, sometimes they say it's Indians. So they are saying racism and inter-ethnic conflicts exist in those countries, not in Jamaica, and therefore we don't need it. You know, and I'm a bit disappointed in that, especially since I was a Jamaican sitting in the seat and oversaw this important activity, you know, and there's not even a kind of recognition that my work is important, and even for that reason, to pay some attention to it. So, but there are individuals in different CARICOM countries who will speak about it and have webinars which will relate to it. Minister Grange, I know, believes in it, and so, you know, there have been small steps, but it has been as large. And I don't think the program is well known. And it should be in the schools, you know.
Yes.
It's not only for the Ministry of Culture. I notice that everything that has to do with Black people and their culture goes to that. It should have been a joined-up approach: foreign affairs, education, justice, because the theme is recognition, justice, and development.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for all of us, and we must take ownership of it.
Yes, I was going to ask you a little about the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, how successful it has been, but you largely have spoken to it. Is there anything you would add to that?
Well, I haven't really spoken too much about the CERD, for short.
Yes.
We say CERD for short,
Yes.
Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. It's the oldest treaty body of the United Nations, over 50 years old since its establishment. And it really tries to get member states, those who have signed on to the International Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, to implement the recommendations that we make to states every year when states come before the committee. So that's how it works.
Yes.
The committee sits in Geneva 3 times a year, or online when we can't go there, and state representatives of states come before us. They talk about what they are doing to eliminate racial discrimination. We assess the extent to which they are doing that and make recommendations, but the states must implement.
Yes.
But I'm proud to say that I'm serving my 2nd term on that committee.
Congratulations.
Committee. And thank you. And also, I won the highest votes the 2 times I competed for a seat, because it's an election. And I'm the first Jamaican, the first CARICOM person who has ever sat on that treaty body.
Yes, Franco, you have the award, you have the applause ready for that. Oh my, I know I'm not, but you jump for it, man. Let's hear it. We congratulate you, Prof. And we're very, you can't find it, Franco? Let's move on then.
Okay.
Do you need a few minutes break? Or
No, I'm good.
You're good.
I just wanted to have some more of my coffee.
Okay, please, yes. Normally, she's on the other side of the glass, usually when we're in the studio, asking the questions, but today we are happy to be asking the questions. All right, so as director for the Center for Reparation Research at the UWI, what specifically is the mandate and how successful have you been?
We're into our 4th year now since establishment, and I think we're doing pretty well. I think the visibility is great.
Yes.
In 2013, as some people may recall, the CARICOM heads of government established the CARICOM Reparations Commission, we say CRC for short, with a mandate to prepare the case for reparatory justice for the region's indigenous and African descendant communities, and we have also added deceptive indentureship. In the case of African descendant communities, they are the victims of a crime against humanity. So, and the indigenous people were subjected to indigenous genocide. Our ancestors were subjected to chattel enslavement, trafficking, trafficking from Africa, and racial apartheid. So the center is part of what the heads mandated. They said that to support the CRC, the center should be established so that it can do research with a mandate to help to prepare the case for reparatory justice for the regions, indigenous people, Indians, Chinese, African people. So we are there to conduct research to support the case.
Unmute your mic, Errol.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. I got muted. This takes us to the big ticket item, which I know is close to your heart. And I understand that this is what people know you for, away from your work with the UN and so on. Your advocacy for reparative justice, working along with Sir Hilary Beckles.
And other members of the CARICOM Reparation Commission.
Yes, there is a, yes. So what we would like to ask you, Prof, now, just like how you have anti-vaxxers, we have anti-reparationist, quote unquote. What would you give as the reasons, the basis that you would try to convince, quote unquote, those persons, on what basis as of the committee, the commission established the case for reparation? That's what I want to ask.
Well, I think they have established the case. Historians have been critical to this. And put simply, I always say to people, suppose somebody had broken into your house.
Yes.
Stolen your children as young as 1 year old, because we have the records that show that some of the kids were like 1, 2, 3, you know?
Yes.
Taking away your grandmother, because we have seen cases of the ages of people who were captured, and some of them are over 70. Burn down your house and just stole everything you have and put you somewhere else into a system of forced labor, no wages, brutalized when you protest to say, but I'm a free person, you can't do this. What would you do? You wouldn't, when you survive and when that system ends, try to say, no, it can't just go so. Somebody, the people who did this must make amends. Even today, somebody just have a mash your toe, you carry them to court for compensation. Thief your goat, engage in pretty larceny and other things. People take people to court. It's the same thing. Anyone who commits a crime must apologize for that crime and pay reparation. Yes. And also, when you look back into our history and see the way in which it wasn't just one crime, it was like crimes after crimes after crimes. When I think, for example, of the people who were murdered in wars of resistance, we think of, Nanny Grigg in the 1816 war in Barbados, Nanny Grigg, the co-leader, was executed. People don't hear a lot about her because she was a woman, They hear about Bussa, but she was a co-leader. So Nanny Grigg was executed. Bussa was executed. Mingo, Little Sambo, King Wiltshire, Dainty, Franklin, so many people were brutalized. And you have spoken again about, in the war in Jamaica, how many people were brutalized. So there's great justification for this struggle. European governments instructed genocidal action upon indigenous communities. They were owners and traders of enslaved Africans. They created the legal, financial, and, fiscal policies necessary for the enslavement of African people. They defined our ancestors as property, as non-persons. And then when emancipation came, they refused compensation to the people who enriched their societies but paid compensation to the enslavers, and then dare to say that we don't deserve reparation because we're talking about dead people. But if we go to court and somebody killed our grandmother, grandfather, and children, we would still go to court to seek compensation for them even though they have died.
Indeed.
So I think we need to ensure that we understand the rationale. And even after slavery ended, the brutality didn't end. I mean, we're talking today on the 25th, and I want us to pay honor to those who were murdered today in October 1865, October 25th. William Bell, Jacob Cousins, William Francis, Samuel Panton, James Scott, William Vogel, Thomas Davis, Charles Gohagan, Letitia Gohagan, that revolutionary woman, she was killed on this day in 1865. Lewis Miller, William Stevens, James Stewart, William Thompson, James Williams, William Robinson, George Coburn, C. Williams, Thomas Johnston, J. Grant, and Charles Thomas. All these men and the one woman killed on this day in 1865.
Interesting.
And so the 10-point action plan of CARICOM is designed really
Yes.
to set out this strategy.
I see. Okay, thanks for that tribute to our ancestors.
Just ask a question here.
Yes.
Is the reparation a universal thing or just a Caribbean thing?
Not a Caribbean thing at all. In fact, you know, there was a conference in Nigeria decades ago. Our own W. Thompson was there. It was chaired by Chief Abiola of Nigeria. And I think if they hadn't killed him, it would have been far, far, far on with reparation. But there are African people involved. The United States was inspired to restart their own, the National African American Reparation Commission, pattern of the 10-point plan. I've been to Berlin, invited to conferences to talk about the 10-point plan because they have, have case Germany in Africa, Belgium. So wherever African people are, in Latin America, right across the world, there are reparation committees. They call them different things, task force or committee or commission. But the movement is in the UK, in the Netherlands, everywhere. And it's an army we're building, and we need to build the army for justice for our people.
Those persons who are anti-reparationists, who say that if we get the money, people are going to thief the money and eat out the money and so on. How do you address that in terms of what all you expect the compensation to come forward, that is not just some money given to those who are in charge to give out?
You see, that's why there's a 10-point action plan, which is about development.
Yes.
Of course, it takes cash to care. So you have to assign a sum of money to the harm.
Yes.
But once you do that, it's not to give out to each person. It's to say the Caribbean, the CARICOM region, the entire Caribbean was left underdeveloped after other people extracted our wealth on the backs of our ancestors and developed their own country. Everybody who travels sees the disparity. You have to go, if you go to London, especially some parts of London, not where Black people live, they don't develop it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the heart of London, the heart of the Netherlands, anywhere you go in Europe, you see the development, and you look at the Caribbean, look at our inner cities, look at our the inequities, inequalities, the structural discrimination, the structural inequities in our society, health, education, and look at how we have been socialized away from our origin. All these things are attributable to colonialism.
Yes.
Therefore, it is a right. It is not an act of begging. There are lots of people who say, oh, yes, I see ads on the radio and the TV. Oh, the EU has done all of this. They give grant and loan and blah, blah. We're not asking for any grant and loan. We're saying you owe us and you have a right to make amends. But I don't know why we don't even challenge them on this. They get away with saying, oh, we're so good to Jamaica. Really? Well, if you want to be good, pay reparation. Pay up.
Have we got no proper apology, which is part of the 10 point?
No apology. No European country has apologized. People may challenge me about that because they have heard people say, we're sorry. An apology is different from a statement of regret.
Yes.
An apology takes responsibility. It commits to non-repetition. That is, stop racially profiling people, stop stopping us at our borders, stop discriminating against us because of skin color.
Yes.
And then it commits to repair. And that's the reparatory justice part of it. So I understand what people are saying, because they know the history of the misappropriation of funds and all of that.
Yes.
And they don't trust politicians. We all know that, right? Even though some of them should be trusted, but we know we know how it goes.
It's a reality.
So we're thinking that there should be an independent group of people who will administer. But we have to sit down, and the vice chancellor, the chair of CARICOM, is calling for a summit in the UK. Sit down and work out how many schools we need to bring our people up to steam in education. How many hospitals to make sure we can handle this pandemic, especially. Where are the roads? So that's the kind of inventory we have to do and then know what it costs. Okay?
Yes. Could you just say where persons can find the 10-point action plan?
They should go to the CARICOM Reparation website and they will find it there, because the 10 points are really, really key. We start with formal apology, Indigenous Peoples Development Program, repatriation for those who desire it, building of cultural institutions, the attention to the public health crisis. We want attention to education to eradicate illiteracy. We want an African knowledge program to reconnect broken bridges of understanding and connection. We want attention to psychological rehabilitation. What happened traumatized even the descendants to this day. We call for technology transfer and debt write-off. And I think the debt cancellation is key, because you can't just get reparation for yourself and have a developed country and then say to us, well, we don't really care about you. No, and then have all these, how much of the dollar of each dollar goes into loan payment. We can't develop if with this burden. It's not right. It's not right. And somebody must take responsibility and make amends.
Okay. Back to a little before we move on to a couple more questions based on our time. Not rushing you, but we know you have another meeting. During the section of establishing the basis for reparations and reparative justice, the planters were compensated. Just run that by us again, what you recall on that.
Yes, well, before the planters would agree that the time had come for emancipation, for ending the system of chattel enslavement, they lobbied for compensation. Now, compensation was not new, by the way, Mr. Bean and colleagues. Every time an enslaved African ran away from the plantation or was killed by armed forces, the planter claimed compensation from the state. So this was something running right through the system. It wasn't new. What was new is the amount they claimed, 20 million pounds, and as Professor Beckles would say, another 27 million in free labor during this scam called apprenticeship system. So they were compensated. And my colleague, Professor Ahmed Reed, did a kind of breakdown. And when I look at it, there's a kind of parish breakdown. Yes. And I noticed that the planters from St. Thomas, it was called St. Thomas in the East.
In the East.
At that time. But those paid the most, in reparation, followed by St. Mary.
Mm.
Yes. So if we were to monetize in 2021 value, we will be talking about, like 800 million pounds or something like that, because it was a lot of money. So in today's value, it will be a lot. But the planters of how interesting is this? The planters who had property in what was St. Thomas in the East, and if we add St. David to it now, which became a part of St. Thomas, they got the most money and extracted that wealth out of St. Thomas and St. David and go develop it, because the money that they got, that money was not invested in the Caribbean, not invested in Jamaica in our case. And both male and female enslavers claimed compensation. The men got more because they had more property, but women enslavers also claimed, even if they had one or two enslaved domestics.
Yes.
And St. Mary was second. The planters in St. Mary got the second highest sum of the 47 million in total that they extracted. And then they say slavery is too far in the past for it to have contemporary application. When it's only in 2015 they finished pay off the loan that they took out from the Rothschilds and other banks.
2015. Could you repeat that, Prof?
Yes. 2015.
Yes.
That the loan that they took out to pay the planters was paid off.
Yes. Interesting.
You see? So black people, black British people, many from the Caribbean, helped to pay off the loan. That is double oppression, I think. you know?
Yes.
So we're not talking about something that is far in the past. We're talking about today, and we're living with the legacies of that original crime. And so that's why reparation is not only about chattel enslavement, it's about continuing harm, because we continue in our societies to be discriminated against, to be poor, you know. We are affected by climate change, environmental degradation, starting from the plantation construction. We deserve this. They owe us.
Okay. I just want to throw out a few words that I know are close to your heart, just for the young people and the children, even adults who do not know that. I will just say them and you give me a quick comment. Give us. You do not talk about slaves. You do not talk anymore. You do not talk about
no rebellion.
No rebellion.
Uprising.
What do you refer to the people who were taking it? What's the proper term? Not slaves.
Yes. We need to engage in language deconstruction, not because the Europeans call our ancestors something, mean that we must accept it. They used to call us nigger. Don't people are saying that we're not using that N-word again? Slaves would indicate that that's a natural condition of our people. Our ancestors were free people. They were put into slavery. So we say enslaved.
Yes.
Enslaved man, enslaved woman, enslaved people.
Yes.
Put the blame where it should go.
Next one, Prof. You speak about enslavers as against slave masters. Elaborate.
Yes. They again put the blame where it was. The people who enslaved Africans were enslavers. Don't call them no mistress or master. We're not giving them that honor. Or you know.
And that covers both male and female.
Yes, enslavers would cover both male and female.
Yes. Okay, there are a few others, but I have two more questions, and we're coming close to the end. Okay. All right. So then, having lived a very big, fruitful, impactful life, I should say, before I give you one or two more questions, our 60th anniversary as a nation is coming up, and the RDR Gleaner Group, and they can pay us some money, Franco, for advertising. They put together a book of 60 women of distinction. And how could they couldn't leave out Prof. Prof is one of those. So those of you who want to celebrate your women, there are other women who came before. It doesn't mean that there are only the 60 women, the women whose shoulder they stand upon. And Prof. Shepherd, Verene Shepherd, is one of the 60 women that will be celebrated in Jamaica 60. So again, we applaud her. She has done well. You ready? You ready for the applause, Franco? All right, we missed it. Anyway, Prof, congratulations again. And
thank you, and thanks to your daughter for having worked with the Gleaner to put this book together.
Yes.
You know, and what I love about it is the introduction, which did what you just said.
Yes.
The introduction recognized that we stand on the shoulders of so many women from 1494 to, you know, when we were born.
Yes.
So that we have to actually celebrate them. And Dr. Bean isolated some of these women. Like
Prof, do me a favor. Just engage the audience for 30 seconds. I want to take up the book so that people can see the book. Please.
Yes, but I'll have to leave where I'm sitting here now. So you'll have to take me off because I have it in this room.
I have the book. I'm going to take it up and show it.
Oh, you have the book. I thought you were asking me to take up the book.
No, I wouldn't put you under that. So just engage the audience for me until I get back in 30 seconds.
Yes. Okay. So you're putting up the book. Yes. So no, this book is important, because it's important. I think one of the reasons Dr. B did it too was that she was saying we're always celebrating the men, but there are powerful and important women in our country and in our history that must be celebrated. And I'm glad that she also paid tribute to Lucille Matron-Meir, who, you know, is somebody I've written about. But I have also been looking at women, not just from the modern era, but that's why I mentioned like Nanny Gray. And Mr. Bean, you know that when we're paying tribute to the Morant Bay War
Yes.
warriors and the revolutionaries of 1831-32. We also isolate the women, you know.
Yes.
So women have been in the struggle for justice, rights, liberation. So we, the 60 women in that, we simply carry on that struggle. We may not be out there with guns fighting a war, even though our police women and soldiers are doing that, you know?
Yes. Okay, so here
yes.
goes. I'm going to block my face. So here is the book.
Yes. It's really lovely.
Yes,
really
it's
lovely.
beautiful. And again, as I'm morphed into a poet, I am happy. And it is true. It's not only because it's my daughter, as she said, who put the book together, but my poem dedicated to women has been quoted in this book.
Yes.
Because I have a poem named To Woman.
Yes.
And I'm so happy to have this outstanding woman with us, Professor Verene Shepherd. If we have time, Franco, I will ask you, if you were to choose your most satisfying achievement project, what would that be in a few words?
Well, it has to be linked to the first answer I gave you when you asked me what's my motivation for academic work.
Yes.
Because without access to the University of the West Indies to do my undergraduate studies and my master's, I would not have been put on that path to achievement and to be what I am today. And then the scholarship to the University of Cambridge to also add to the education of the University of the West Indies. I have to say that tertiary education gave me, I think it was an achievement. For me, based on my beginnings, to get access, to be accepted into the University of the West Indies, to get a scholarship, a teacher scholarship to help me pay fees. And then, of course, I was fortunate because Michael Manley had said free tertiary education. I was able to buy every single book I needed. So all those things, I think, the education gave me, tertiary education, I think that would be my great achievement, to have gotten the bachelor's, the MPhil, and then the PhD from two great universities.
Yes, and we tend to forget that you're Dr. Shepherd, although we call you professor is a higher level, but she's doctor.
Professor is a result of your academic achievements and promotions and body of work. But the doctorate you get when you do your final degree, you know.
Last question, unless Franco inject time, but I don't think you have to go. No. You have a worldview. You have been there, done that. You're a UN expert. What development, significant development, would you love to see in the Caribbean and in the world in general? One or two?
Not the world in general. I want to stay right here in the
All right, region. Stay right here. Flavors of the Caribbean.
I would like the CARICOM region to pattern Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and now Barbados and Dominica in becoming a republic. It is time for us to understand that colonialism has not ended. Until we end and become self-confident people and become a republic and get rid of the monarchical system of government, I can't say we're claiming freedom. And what are the benefits of that anyway? We have to get visa to go and look for Mrs. Queen. Right?
Can you repeat that, please, Prof? Can you repeat that?
Yes, I mean, what are the benefits of being under the monarchical system of government? And every time I go to the UK, I have to get a visa. It's expensive too. And then when you go there, even immigration, I'm at liberty, you know? So I think if we value our self-respect, we should pattern the latest country, Barbados, that is moving in that direction. Get your president and become a republic and start really taking care of ourselves. But of course, not to say that we're not going to still hold them responsible.
Reparations still on the table.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Look, Franco always say we have to get you back, or Flavius. definitely, Prof, you have to come back. I don't know when you'll kind of time.
I don't know how that's going to go because I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. But we will work this and we will make sure it is put in a space where for the generation to come, this program will be there among others. And so it has been our greatest pleasure and real signal happiness and pleasure to have had you this morning. And we pray that you will continue to rise and soar. We are happy to know you. People, I know this lady. She has hugged me. She has shaken my hand before COVID time. And I really happy. I'm happy for her. My song Out of Africa, she gave me the words at the end, 2004 on my album. And thank you, Prof, for those words.
And I heard it being played yesterday on my friend Kabu's program, Running Africa.
Really? I didn't even hear it. Thank you very much.
Played it yesterday. The children of Africa were captured and taken away. Yes.
And then you told me about the underdevelopment of Africa.
That's
I
right.
always give you thanks. Franco, you have that song to play as we go out?
It would be lovely, but no.
Yes. So if you have to leave when it is on, Prof, you can. But thank you very much and blessings on you and your family.
Thank
and
you
your
so much
granddaughter,
for
your
having
lovely
me.
little granddaughter, right?
Yes,
Bless
Nyla.
you.
Yes.
Nyla. Bless her.
Thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity. I am one of the people, and I have to make time to talk to people because people put me where I am. Sometimes we tend to forget that. But when we are in academia, when we have jobs in schools and at universities, who pay our salary? Who help to pay our salary? So I honor my people of Jamaica and the Caribbean.
And finishing with this, I heard you say recently, one of the things that Walter Rodney did to break the trend, he did not bring back a white wife. And so he stayed on the...
I wasn't the one to say that his wife, somebody else said that.
I know somebody's... okay, it was on your program. Anyway, whatever, that's a different thing. So thank you very much, Prof. Shepherd, and blessings on you. Thank you, Franco. Thank you, Flavors, Courtney, and the rest, and everybody.
Okay.
The sons of Africa were captured and carried away. Of Africa were captured and carried away by enslavers. They were branded as chattel and things to be. Yes, them was scattered and divided. They labored in agony.
Just want to thank all our viewers this morning in YouTube for taking time out and for being here with us as well. We thank all of you. We want to big up every one of you this morning. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share the video. The object of this channel is to educate you and entertain you. The Real Stuff Podcast is your Caribbean podcast. Remember that. Before I leave, I want to remind you, live and love every moment of your life. Be grateful for each new day. Cherish your family and friends. Bless others and keep the faith. Never lose hope. And remember, prayer changes things regardless of what religion you belong to. You must pray and continue to pray. So on behalf of my podcasting team, Mr. Bean, Courtney, Flavius, Max Wanette, Francine, and myself, have a joyful morning, a joyful afternoon, a joyful evening, depending on your time zone. And I'm going to ask Queen Lobafo to say the Our Father in the Garifuna language, and Tafina will take on myself to take us out of here.
You lead us to Fula. You belong far away away. Ajuguala lego buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
Take away myself. One word is enough.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time.
What I was trying to say, I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me know what set me if it could flee. Me I fi take away me say.